Thank you. This is slightly, it follows on, but it's quite interesting here. We're going to talk a bit about psychological safety, but this is what I call the anatomy of a change agent. And again, it's going to be impossible for me to read all these out, but you can read as I'm talking. These are all of what are considered as the characteristics of a change agent here. And the interesting thing is that actually, as a coach, you are a change agent. You are there to be the catalyst for change. So the anatomy is very similar. Quite often, there are people in organizations who are considered as change agents. They may not have the label of coach, but they're actually doing it indirectly within their organizations. What you'll see when you look at all these characteristics is that it takes a lot of power and strength to do this, right? It's not about staying in the normal or flatlining. It is about taking personal risks. Sometimes, people don't see eye to eye with you, but you can see the bigger picture and you can help them move forward, right? You might feel very much a bit like senior leaders do as they go up the organization, a sense of being alone, a sense of the fact that you see things that other people don't, all right? And you'll be constantly challenging yourself as a change agent. As we said earlier on, you will not be static. So these are all the characteristics. I remember a very personal story. My daughter, who's a teenager now and applying for universities, we used to have our sort of more deeper conversations on Saturday morning when we had breakfast together. And she came down one day in tears, and she didn't understand why she was struggling with her friendship group at school. She won't mind me sharing this. And what became clear in the dialogue was that actually she was the change agent, right? She was absorbing all the information from the others, right? And dealing with it and filtering it in the right way. She could see the dynamics while these different people in the groups were, in conflict and fighting with each other. And to put it very briefly, I showed her this chart. And I said, do you know what you are? You're a change agent, but you just didn't even know that you're a change agent. And she got it straight away. It made perfect sense to her. And because of that, we printed it out and we laminated it. And now she's got on a bedroom wall just to remind her that she is a change agent. And it's not easy being a change agent. For us to do that, we also need to create an area of what we call psychological safety. I refer to the HBR paper, great article in 2017. If people are going to change and people are going to push their personal boundaries, right, they have to be safe. And that means that leaders have to protect them. Again, Siham or Debbie, could you possibly come in on this one with your experiences? Siham, maybe. I'm going to put you on the spot.
Yeah, sure. No, that's fine. I wanted to call out the third circle on the top. You'll need to be caring and confrontational, guiding and directive. And I think that this is an area that is very nuanced and requires reaching into the heart and the brain in equal measure, and a certain amount of emotional regulation as well, to be able for that to be a useful exercise, right? To be caring and to challenge in a way that creates a sort of robustness of thinking for that individual or for the team. So it's a very, I think it's one of the most sort of challenging and exciting skills of coaches, and adds in massive value to leaders and decision makers.
Yes, that's a really important point, and we're going to cover that in more detail when we go to the elements of team coaching. So could we move on?
Yeah, I was just going to,
John,
yeah,
sure, sorry, yeah, sure.
Draw out the little blue circle at the bottom on the right here. Your greatest joy will be what you can do for others so that they can do it for themselves. And that brings me back to, a client that I coached who was at a very, very, very low level of energy. And I encouraged her to reach out to other people to see what she could do for them. Because obviously her main concern was for herself, because that's where she was at and that's where she was coming across, and the spotlight was very much on her. And as soon as she started to open up and start looking at what she could be doing for other people, she started to see things in a different way, and she started to look out of different lenses, and things started to change and her energy rose. So I just wanted to bring that.
No, thank you for sharing it. That's a great story. I'm not going to spend too long on this. This is the definition of team coaching from Katzenbach and Smith in 1993. It's well reported in a lot of the literature. It's a strong definition. A team is a small number of people with complementary skills who are committed to a common purpose, a set of performance goals, an approach where they hold themselves mutually accountable. And that's really important here. It's the mutually accountable piece. There are other definitions around. Some of them are shorter, some of them are longer. I personally like this one, but again, I would couch people to go and do the research. The only slight change I might make in this one is I like the idea of collective purpose rather than common purpose. I think the word collective is very much a doing word, and it implies that the team are doing something in the moment as their team, rather than just something that's nebulous or global. So I tend to change that a bit and use the word collective. And at the bottom, you can see here, again, these are quite new. ICF, as I mentioned before, has recognized team coaching as a really important means of transforming companies. So they've actually come up with some core competencies. There's 8 there for a team coach. And this is what team coaches will be expected to follow as they develop and go forward. And this is something that we all, as our group here in Team Coaching Boutique, absolutely believe in and are using all the time. Any thoughts and reflections on that, either Debbie or CM?
No, I think it's spot on.
Yeah, okay. And we can see the overlap there between what you do in individual coaching, right, and team coaching. So we're going to move on now. Thank you. So why team coaching? You know, we've talked a lot about the background and the context, and which is very important that we understand that. But these are some of the things that I've identified, you know, and with the team here in Team Coaching Boutique, what is important to companies, right? And what team coaching can do, right? We can use it as a means of leveraging resources, right? Forming informal teams, you know, a dynamic team. We can change teams, but each time we need to work with them, right? It's a way of improving the engagement, either within a team or for a team within an environment with other teams. You can also use it to surface hidden problems, right? If you were doing one-to-one coaching, you know, that may or may not surface depending on what the client wants to do, right? They may choose not to hold back. And I'm sure we've all to hold back rather. I'm sure as coaches, we've all experienced situations where it takes quite a bit of time for people to open up, right? Sometimes the team environment may not allow them to open up because they feel threatened by other people. But again, that's the skill of the coach. And we can also use it to challenge inappropriate behavior, right? It's become very evident, particularly again during COVID, we've seen all sorts of areas, and I'm not going to go through that, of inappropriate behavior, whether it be politicians or corporate people or just people, right? Team coaching allows you to do that. But I would say here that the psychological safety piece is really, really important, because if people feel as though they can talk openly in that group or team, then they're more likely to open up and you're more likely to solve a problem. A problem that's hidden, like below the waterline, is a problem that you cannot help or not solve because you as the coach won't do it. It's up to them to solve it. But when you flesh things out in the open, you've got an opportunity to help people and solve problems. And also, it's a way of finding hidden talents. I know from personal experience, I've done that through some global operational transformations where we found talents in people we didn't need, we didn't even know existed, because people hadn't had the opportunity to throw that out there and show what they can do. And I guess finally, and we're going to go into this in a bit more detail, it's got the definition on the right. Team coaching does provide this opportunity to engage productively and effectively, but it is not the same as facilitation. And this quite often gets confused. And we're going to cover that because I guess this is what people want to really know. You know, what are the differences? And we're going to cover that in the next few slides. Thank you. So I found this wonderful slide the other day, this actually graphic from the International Coaching Federation. And it actually clearly elucidates the differences between team building, training, consulting, facilitation, etc. I thought this put it very beautifully. So I thought we'd just go through these very briefly and try and explain the differences, because quite often, you know, when we speak to clients, there is a confusion, particularly between training and consultations. Mentoring is a bit better understood, and team coaching. So we're going to quickly whiz through these. So if we can just go through the animations, Debbie, here. So team building here, this is very much a discrete activity. You're building a team for a specific purpose. It has value, right? But here again, the coach sort of owns the process, and it's quite often team building sessions are also pre-designed and predetermined. And we'll see that that is a bit different from, say, team coaching. Next animation, please. So team training and team consulting, I'm not going to go into these in detail. They're a bit more obvious, right? But the key difference here is that the facilitator or the coach, whatever they call themselves, it's about knowledge transfer. It's about giving, right, rather than receiving. And it doesn't necessarily mean a great deal of listening. It should always have some listening. So that's the difference. Next animation, please. Team mentoring. This is where a coach or a mentor would actually understand the process of coaching and understand the emotions and everything else. But it's predetermined that a mentor must have some knowledge or experience in the arena. Normally coaching is agnostic, right? A good coach doesn't need to know the background of the person and is not involved in translating experience or skills or anything like that. But in the case of mentoring, they are, right? Because there has to be that resonance. So, you know, if somebody's been a director of a company and the mentee hasn't been one, you know, that's where it comes together. Somebody's been through a major technical exercise or a big project, right? And we've got a junior manager learning how to project manage. They have a mentor, right? So there is this whole thing of experience, knowledge, and understanding in mentoring. Facilitation, we'll just whip through that very quickly, but that's very much about facilitating a process to get a job done, right? It's a means of getting ideas. You might find team facilitation in a strategy session, particularly. Now, the final one is team coaching, and that's what we're here to talk about today. And you can see, by the way, in this slide, it's got some of the ideas of the activities and the durations, etc. Right? But the key thing here with team coaching is generally longer, right? And it does involve some elements of team building, maybe some team facilitation at the front end, but it is emergent. And what you'll find is it's the coach is there to help the coachees and the clients and the team sort their own problems out. And that can take time because, as we talked about before, it can take time for things to surface. So, and again, before we move on, any thoughts or reflections, Debbie, Siham?
Just that, you know, to add to what you're saying, it's generating a collective awareness of themselves and the dynamics between them, and introducing by their design new protocol, new ways of interacting with each other that are more productive, that actually move things forward and stop them from getting stuck where they might previously.
Great, thank you.